Welcome back, everybody, to Just the News, No Noise. Yes, I am back. And as John talked about earlier, President Trump is pardoning a whole swath of folks related to the 2020 election. One of them, of course, being Rudy Giuliani, a frequent guest on this program, and now one of the pardon recipients, is joining us now. He is, like I said, one of the folks who received one of those pardons, former Wisconsin Judge Jim Troupis. Judge Jim, how are you? Good to see you.
Great. Good to see you as well.
Sir, I imagine that this is an extra arrow for your quiver. A lot of people, as John and I discussed earlier today, might think, well, what does a federal pardon have to do with a state case? But if the federal government doesn't think that what you did was a crime, then why should the state?
Well, I think there's a fundamental issue here that this Justice Department is coming to grips with, which is federal preemption or supremacy. In 2020, what happened was we simply recommended that the president follow the rules that had been established for literally hundreds of years in the use of alternate delegates. It's a part of the statutory structure. It's part of the United States Constitution. Because of that recommendation, which was supported at the time by the Wisconsin Attorney General, literally told us to use alternate electors, and if we did that, we had zero chance of sacrificing our appeal. We told the court we were relying upon that explicit suggestion by our Attorney General. What happens later? He indicts us, even after he writes a letter of opinion following on that as well. It's hard to imagine such duplicity. This pardon today draws attention to the lawfare that is ongoing against people like me. I certainly appreciate this pardon because it will focus you and all the others on the continuing destruction of lives. And when I say that, look, I said at one point we had 17 separate legal actions brought against me. We've had bar complaints. Literally, my son was taken aside and they took his electronics on a Disney cruise. They grabbed his personal electronics in front of his children. That's the kind of abuse we've gone through. And then at the last possible moment, having already opined that there was no crime, but Biden called on Josh Kaul and said, you have got to file something in Wisconsin. And then he did in June of 2024. That kind of abuse of power, especially in these times, it's important for the Department of Justice to step forward. And today's pardon is a step in that direction.
So you wore the black robe, you adjudicated cases, you served your country. Did you ever imagine you'd be inside a legal system where law gave deference to politics?
No. At the conclusion of the 2020 case, I think, again, I have to give a little history here. I've represented every Republican presidential campaign until I was on the bench in 2016 in the state of Wisconsin, going back to the 1980s. I had helped write the Recount statute in Wisconsin. I was one of the authors of that in a nonpartisan committee. I handled the only statewide recount that had ever been held contested for Mr. Justice Prosser in 2011. Yeah. It was a surprise to absolutely no lawyer in Wisconsin when the president called on me to do this job, to help in a recount. And I was honored to get that call. And I'm honored to think of the president as a friend and a mentor. He used to call me whenever he calls, it's the Greek judge. It's a Wisconsin Greek judge. He's on the phone. Once got me, I always loved this one. He would call in the morning and I'd have my grandchildren would be around and he would welcome them on the phone call. Or one time I took a call from the president in the back of a Wisconsin tavern. And I know, John, you know Wisconsin, so it's a traditional Friday night fish fry that the president caught me one evening. So, it was a really important moment in time. And I stepped forward, as I said, it's the United States Senate on December 16th of 2020, because all the other big law firms were cowards. They understood there was a real case in Wisconsin. We got 3 members of our state Supreme Court to agree with our case. The Democrat lawyers themselves thanked me at the conclusion of the case in Wisconsin to say, we really appreciate how you handled this in such difficult times. But none of that matters on a national scale. None of that matters when the left is involved.
Judge, I want to ask you, a year and 5 days ago, they called the election for President Trump. And I know that obviously had a huge impact on you as far as what you could see as relief in the future when President Trump did agree to review these cases and possibly issue pardons. But I want to ask you about what could have been the fate of our judicial system, and not necessarily just judges and justices and a lot of these left-wing activists that are a part of the judiciary, but private law firms, as you mentioned, folks who serve as clerks. What would there have ever been any repair for our judicial system if the election had gone a different way last year?
I can't tell you how sad I am about that. I spent my entire life, I'm in my 70s, I was retired when the president called and asked me to handle the recount on his behalf. I never thought I'd live to see this day. I always say, I tell this story when I've been asked about this, that on the day before November the 4th of 2020, there wasn't a lawyer in the state of Wisconsin who wouldn't have been proud to have me sit next to them. And I would have been equally proud to sit next to them. And then it all changed. The left went to war with the help of the judiciary, and that has continued. It is unbelievably sad for people like me who've practiced law for nearly 50 years to have seen this truly unbelievable change. We are on the edge of an abyss, and thank goodness President Trump is there now, and Ed Martin and Pam Bondi, to now take the steps that have to be taken to clean this mess up.
Judge, before we let you go, what is the reason why the federal government didn't bring these charges originally? And is there any evidence of collusion, meaning that the feds basically outsourced this to the states so that they would have some activity going on during the 2024 election to sully up Donald Trump and his supporters?
Well, there is so much evidence of coordinated effort. It begins, everybody in Washington knows it. I guess it's a surprise to me. I'm not from Washington, but when I've been out there in the last 2 years, everyone knows Mary McCord at Georgetown directed all of this. Everyone knows that the January 6th committee was all a part of a national plan. Everyone knows that Joe Biden and his supporters pushed Josh Kaul to do this, and they used NGOs and the like Law Forward in Wisconsin to do it. These are open secrets in Washington. Yeah. It's time for the investigation to get truly serious and go after these people. It was a coordinated effort, as Ed Martin has said in his memo today, to deny the right of the citizens of this country to petition the government in a presidential election. They need to intervene in this case, make those arguments, and need to bring appropriate civil rights actions against these players. As I said, everyone knows who they are in Washington, and that's a shock to me, but something's got to be done.
Yeah, we're going to make sure they know every fact. We're going to have a series of stories coming up later this week. Judge, we really appreciate all you've been through. Yeah. It really is amazing.
Absolutely. Judge, thanks so much for being here. We'll have you back on again very soon. Staying on top of your
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we're going to take a very quick break, but on the other side, we're going to be talking about the climate with Marc Morano, one of the best people to talk about that in the biz on the other side.